I used to think anniversaries were sacred, a time to celebrate love, reminisce about the years spent together, and dream about the years to come. Our 7th anniversary was supposed to be just that, a quiet dinner, maybe a walk along the riverside, and a night spent laughing over our shared memories. But instead, it became the night I discovered that the woman I called my wife had already walked out of our marriage long before I ever knew it. It started with a single rose. That afternoon, I left work early, determined to surprise Laura with flowers. I remember feeling almost giddy as I picked out a bouquet of pale pink peonies, her favorite. The florist told me she'd just had a large order from someone else for the same flowers, and I felt a curious twinge of coincidence. I brushed it off. After all, who else but me would remember such a small detail about her? I got home around 4 p.m., hoping to catch Laura before she left for her Pilates class. But when I stepped through the front door, the house was silent. No music, no rustle of her moving through the kitchen, no soft humming as she folded laundry. There was only a lingering scent of flowers, oddly strong, and a vase of fresh pink peonies sitting on the hallway table. I stood staring at the arrangement, feeling like I'd stumbled into some kind of riddle. I was holding my own bouquet, identical to the one already on display. That's when I noticed the small white card tucked between the blooms. It read, "Can't wait to see you again. M." My hands went cold. The only M I knew in our lives was Martin, the delivery driver from the local flower shop, a man I'd met once or twice when he dropped off flowers Laura claimed were from her work friends or old college buddies. He was tall, lean, and always wore a grin that felt a bit too familiar when he looked at her. I felt like I was drowning as I carried my flowers to the kitchen, trying to process what the card implied. Our wedding photo smiled at me from the fridge, Laura in her ivory dress, me in my navy suit. Her eyes had shone with what I thought was love, but now I wondered how long that light had been for someone else. When I heard her car in the driveway, I scrambled to hide the evidence. I tucked the card back into the bouquet and set my own flowers beside it. I needed answers, not accusations. Laura breezed through the door wearing a soft blue dress I hadn't seen before, one that hugged her curves like it was made just for her. She looked surprised to find me home. "Hey," she said brightly, kissing my cheek. "You're home early." I forced a smile. "Thought we could head out to dinner together. Happy anniversary." She hesitated just a second too long before her face lit up with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Of course. Let me just freshen up." While she was upstairs, I picked up her phone from the counter. I'd never invaded her privacy before, but the card had shattered my trust. My hand shook as I scrolled through her messages. There it was, text from M. Sweet words, playful banter, and plans to meet at his apartment when the coast was clear. Some messages were explicit in a way that made my stomach churn. She came downstairs minutes later, hair brushed, lips glossed, moving with a confidence that made it feel like she was walking on air. Or maybe she was floating on the thrill of her affair. I tried to hold her gaze, to find the woman I loved, but all I saw was a stranger. We left the house in silence. The car ride to the restaurant was filled with forced small talk. She commented on the sunset. I nodded. She asked if I'd had a good day. I lied. The words between us felt brittle, like one wrong move would shatter everything. Halfway through dinner, I asked, "Who's M?" Her fork clattered against her plate. Her eyes darted to mine, wide with a panic she tried to hide. I don't know what you mean." "Don't lie to me, Laura," I said, my voice shaking. "The flowers, the card, the texts." She stared at me, mouth opening and closing, searching for a defense. Finally, she exhaled, her shoulders slumping as tears welled in her eyes. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she whispered. "I felt lonely, like you were always working or tired. He made me feel alive again. I flinched like she'd struck me. So you slept with him? Her silence was all the answer I needed. The weight of her betrayal settled over me like a heavy blanket. Memories of our mornings together, our inside jokes, the nights we'd stayed up late whispering about our dreams, all of it felt poison now. Laura reached across the table, but I pulled my hand back. Her tears fell freely as she tried to explain. She said she never meant for it to go so far, that it started with harmless flirting when Martin delivered flowers to our house. Then coffee dates. Then hotel rooms. As I listened, I felt a strange sense of detachment wash over me. The man she described wasn't just a delivery driver. He was a wedge that had driven us apart. Or maybe he was just a symptom of a rot that had been growing in our marriage for longer than I wanted to admit. When the waiter came to clear our plates, I asked for the check. Laura was still crying, her napkin clutched tightly in her fists. I paid the bill without another word. The drive home was silent, heavy with unspoken words and shared devastation. Back in our driveway, I turned to her. I need time to think, I said quietly. I don't know what happens next, but I can't be in the same house as you right now. Her sobs broke the quiet night as I got out of the car. I heard her calling my name, but I couldn't look back. I packed an overnight bag, called a friend, and left before I lost my resolve. As I drove through the empty streets, the weight of the truth settled in my chest. I kept seeing her smile at me across candlelit tables, hearing her laughter in my head, wondering when it all became a lie. I spent the next week at a friend's spare room, the walls bare except for a calendar stuck on September, frozen in a year long past. Each night, I lay awake staring at the peeling ceiling, wondering how the pieces of my life had come apart so quietly. The texts from Laura came in waves, pleas for forgiveness, desperate apologies, promises she'd end things with Martin. I read every one, but didn't reply. I didn't know how. By the third night, my friend Rob finally asked, "Are you going back?" I hesitated, but the question hung in the stale air like the smell of burnt coffee. I wasn't sure. I loved her, or maybe I loved who she used to be, or who I wanted her to be. I couldn't tell anymore. On Thursday evening, I returned home to get more clothes. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw a car parked out front. Not Laura's. Not mine. It was a white delivery van, its side emblazoned with the logo of the local florist. Martin. The porch light was off, but the living room glowed softly. I killed the engine and crept up to the house, heart hammering. Through the partially drawn curtains, I saw them. Laura on the couch, her legs draped over his lap, his hand tracing slow circles on her knee. Her head rested on his shoulder. They looked so comfortable, like a couple unwinding after a long day, like a life that should have been mine. A nauseating mix of rage and heartbreak boiled in my chest. I almost burst through the door right then, but something held me back. Instead, I stepped back from the window, my breath steaming in the cool night air, and leaned against my car. I felt like an outsider peering into a life I no longer belonged to. I stayed until he finally stood, kissed her forehead, and left. He didn't see me as he walked to his van, whistling softly. I slipped inside the house, and Laura jumped to her feet when she saw me. "You're back," she breathed, as though she'd been waiting for me, even as the ghost of his touch still clung to her. "Was he worth it?" I asked, voice low, calm, too calm. "All of this. Was he worth throwing everything away?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I saw the flicker of something else, defensiveness. "It's not that simple," she said. "You don't know how lonely I felt. I was here, Laura. I was always here." I snapped, the dam breaking. "You could have talked to me. Instead, you opened our door and our bed to a stranger. She crumpled into the armchair, sobbing. I'm sorry. I don't know why I did it. I felt trapped, stuck in the same routines. He made me feel seen again. I wanted to comfort her. I wanted to shake her. I wanted to run. Instead, I sank to the floor, burying my head in my hands. Our wedding vows echoed in my mind, cruel in their irony, for better or worse. Eventually, I looked up. You need to leave, I said hoarsely. Leave? But this is my house. I can't heal here with you in it. Pack a bag. Stay with a friend. Stay with him. I don't care. But go. She stared at me, mouth opening in silent protest, then stood shakily and went upstairs. I listened to the sounds of drawers opening and closing, the zipper of her suitcase, the muffled weeping. When she came down, eyes red, she tried to reach for me. I stepped back. At the door, she turned. I don't want a divorce, she whispered. I don't know what I want, I admitted. But right now, I need you gone. She left. The house felt empty the moment the door clicked shut. It should have been a relief, but instead, it felt like all the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. Days passed. I called in sick to work, unable to face the world. I wandered the rooms of our house, my house, picking up reminders of our life together, photos, concert tickets, handwritten notes, each one a dagger. I boxed them up and stuffed them into the attic. A week later, I started seeing a counselor. I needed someone to help me untangle the mess of betrayal, and grief knotted in my chest. At first, I could barely talk without crying. But slowly, session by session, the knots began to loosen. I learned that her affair wasn't about me being inadequate or unlovable. It was about her choices, her failures. I wasn't perfect, but I wasn't the cause of her betrayal. 2 weeks after she moved out, Laura asked to meet. We sat across from each other in a coffee shop that smelled like burnt espresso. She looked exhausted, her eyes hollow. She said she'd ended things with Martin the night I came home. She begged for another chance. I'll do anything, she said, voice trembling. Counseling. Therapy. I'll quit my job if it makes you feel safer. I searched her face for the woman I fell in love with. But all I saw was someone I didn't recognize. Someone who had let a stranger into our life. I don't know if I can ever trust you again, I said quietly. I know, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. But I'm not giving up. We parted with a stiff, uncertain hug. As I walked back to my car, the future felt like a thick fog. No clear path ahead, only questions. Could we rebuild? Should we even try? Or was it kinder to let this marriage die so we could both start fresh? Months passed. We both went to counseling, separately and together. We talked more honestly than we ever had, about our fears, our resentment, our disappointments. Sometimes it felt like we were making progress. Other times, it felt like we were just picking at a wound that wouldn't heal. I don't know where we're going from here. Some days, I feel a glimmer of hope when I see her trying so hard to make amends. Other days, I think about how easily she lied, and my heart closes up like a fist. What I do know is this: I'm stronger now than I was on the night I found that card in the flowers. I've learned I can survive heartbreak, that I can face betrayal without letting it define me. I still don't know if our marriage will survive. But I know that, whatever happens, I won't lose myself again.